Alright, hello, welcome back to the podcast once again, everybody. PayPal and Patreon links are both down below for anybody who wants to support me. Only do so if you actually can. So, what was expected and feared to come has indeed come about now. European natural gas inventories are getting dangerously low. Gas demand is the highest, obviously, during the winter months, when heating demand goes up, obviously, and is much lower in the summer months. So during the summer, one way or another, more gas is generally being produced than is being consumed. So a portion of gas gets diverted into excess storage inventories that then get used during the winter months when natural gas demand tends to spike way above production numbers of any given moment. Well, for many of the nations of Europe, over the course of this past summer and even later portions of the fall, their inventories did not get to build up as much as they normally would have because there was a large lack of wind and sun compared to normal amounts. And so since many nations in the EU have switched a lot of their electricity generation over to wind and solar, they saw a decent deficit of power generation, which they had to make up for by turning on various natural gas-fired power plants. So their natural gas consumption levels over the warmer parts of the year last year ended up being a decent bit higher than they otherwise would have, which thusly resulted in their inventories not building up to the levels they normally would. And then in the late fall of last year, as the northern hemisphere is tilting away from the sun, solar power generation obviously was drastically reduced anyways, but there was also another multi-week period of much less wind than would be expected across the region. So wind power generation also dropped, and so at the same time as their heating demand spiking up, they also had to fire back up their natural gas-fired power plants again to make up for the shortfall in electricity generation, especially Germany, since Deutschland has decided to shut down all of their nuclear power plants, which is a really, really unwise decision for Germany in particular. They now have to also supplement that absent nuclear power that they have been shutting down. The last time we spoke about this, about a month and a half ago or so, many European nations' inventories were down to about 2/3 or 3/4 full. And in my video about energy and resource forecasts or expectations for 2022, which I'll put a link to up here if you want to see those, I said that I expected many of them would probably get down dangerously low, under 1/3 even, maybe down towards even like 10%. And, well, many of their inventories are now down close to 1/3. Some of them are even under it, down into the 20s in their percentiles. Most of them, with some exceptions, like Poland, who predominantly relies on coal-fired power generation. So their natural gas inventories last year still built up to their regular levels because they didn't have a sudden shortfall of electricity that they had to make up for. So some countries like Poland are still declining at their regular rates, and are still at where they would be on average right now. But most of the countries of concern are now below half. Many are down towards 1/3, and 2 are down in the 20s. Running through their individual numbers right now, Germany has a maximum storage capacity of 800 billion cubic feet or so, and normally they get up into the 700s at the height of their storage refill during the warmer months. This last year, however, they only made it up into the 600s, and even apart from that have been dropping faster than they normally would. When we last spoke about this a month and a half ago, they were down in the 500s. Now they have since then dropped all the way down almost to 300 and are down to 316 billion cubic feet in storage, which equates to their inventories being down to less than 40%, down to only about 39% full or so, dropping on average about 1% per day. And January isn't over, at least as of this recording. February is still coming, and then even decent parts of March are usually cold as well. Belgium has a maximum capacity of about 31 billion cubic feet or so, which they normally fill up completely during the warmer months, and they did fill it up completely, or almost at least, but they have still been dropping really, really fast. And last time we spoke about this back in December, they were up in the mid-20s or so. Now they are all the way down to only 12 billion cubic feet in storage, which equates to about the same as Germany, rated about 39%. Denmark is at least doing decently better. Their maximum capacity is also about 31, and they usually fill it up completely during the warmer months, which they did this past year. And when we last spoke about this, they were up in the upper 20s. Now they are down a bit under 20 at 19.4 billion cubic feet in storage, which equates to a bit above 60 or 63% full. The UK has unwisely been reducing its total natural gas storage capacity over time. Over recent years, they've been shutting down storage sites and not replacing them with new ones. So while just a few years ago, their storage capacity was something like 43 billion cubic feet, now it's down to only being about 33. And they were doing well because their weather is usually different from the mainland. They weren't dropping too fast until these last few weeks. They've started to drop pretty quickly now, as they've gotten some decent cold as well. And so now they've dropped from being full down to just under 23 billion cubic feet in storage, which equates to, for them, 70% full. The Netherlands, with a capacity almost at 500 billion cubic feet, topping out at 486. Normally, during the warmer months, they refill their inventories up to the lower 400s. This past year, however, they only got up into the 300s. And when we last spoke about this, they were down close to 300. Well, now they're down way further than that, all the way down to only 136 billion cubic feet in storage, which equates to they are less than 30% full, down at 28%, dropping similar to Germany at roughly 1% per day. So the situation looks not all that great. Poland, as I mentioned, predominantly generates their electricity from coal-fired power plants, so they didn't have the electricity deficits this past year that many of the other European nations did. And the other European nations who get some portion of their electricity from those nations who had the electricity deficits. Poland got their inventories all the way up to where they usually do, right at about their capacity, which is a bit above 120 billion cubic feet. And when we last covered this, they were down between 100 and 110. Now they're down at about 84, which is roughly their usual decline rate, down where they normally would drop to by this point in time. And what equates to just under 70% of their storage capacity. Meanwhile, their neighbor, the Czech Republic, also did fill up their inventories close to full. They did come a bit short of it last year, though. They got up to around 110 out of 120, and when we last covered this back in December, they were down just under 100. Now, the Czech Republic is all the way down to only about 50 billion cubic feet in storage, which is down to about 41% of their capacity. Austria, with a storage capacity of around 323 billion cubic feet, normally they get up into the upper 200s during the refill season of the year. This past year, however, they only got up a bit over 200, and when we last covered this, I believe they were down in the mid-100s. Now, however, they're all the way down to only 77.2, which puts them at less than a quarter capacity left. They are down to only 24%. And the final nation of concern, Romania. Romania has a maximum capacity of about 112 billion cubic feet. Normally they fill it up completely during the refill season, and they did almost fill it up completely this past year, but they have been dropping precipitously, especially during this month, January. When we last spoke about this in December, they were in the 80s. Now they're down to only about 45.5 billion cubic feet, which puts them at about 40% of their capacity remaining. So as the frigid coldness of numbers should tell you, this is not a good situation. And no, since I would expect someone would probably try to bring it up, it would not be a better idea to switch everything like Europe is trying to do over to electric heating, as the natural gas supply deficit is only a result of an electricity generation deficit. So no, switching the heating over to the thing that you're actually having problems with, the thing that is the actual source of the problem, is not a solution to the problem. And to close it out, how has this translated into prices? It has translated into really high prices, off the charts record high prices. At one point, the European natural gas prices got as high as $48 per 1,000 cubic feet. To put that into perspective, the rough average of U.S. natural gas prices in present day is usually only around $4 per 1,000 cubic feet. UK natural gas prices got pretty close to that. They got up to $46 per 1,000 cubic feet. Now, since then, the prices have collapsed by about half, as again, market prices are based on futures. So instead of actually being a direct result of supply and demand, it's based on what market speculators think the situation will be like about 2 months from a given date. So because market speculators think in 2 months the situation will be a lot nicer, the prices have dropped dramatically, which is obviously a good thing for those of you in Europe. However, it is not a reflection of the actual supply reality. European natural gas prices have dropped down to a bit under 25, right around $24 per 1,000 cubic feet or so, whereas UK prices have dropped down to around 22 or 23. Again, for perspective, the highest prices that U.S. natural gas ever got to wasn't even at or over $20. It was only in the mid or upper teens. All right, so that's it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and listening. If you want to see or listen to more, obviously, there's plenty of episodes. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon are both down there for anybody who wants to support me, only if you actually can do so. If you want to help support me for free and also see stuff that's a little more warm-hearted, you can go over to my cat's channel and subscribe to her, as if she gets up to 1,000, then her channel gets monetized. I get another source of ad revenue. Obviously, that helps my financial situation out. But regardless of whatever happens to me, may God bless and protect you all, and I will see you all around next time.